Hello. Today is March the 7th, and this is a meeting of the City of Vero Beach Historic Preservation Commission. Now called to order. And we can begin by discussing our minutes of the last meeting, which was, we really need to refresh our memory since it was August the 7th, or 8th, August the 8th, 7 months ago. Are there any additions or corrections to that meeting? Ladies?
I have none.
You have one?
I have none.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Everyone against? Everyone's in favor. Let's approve the minutes. Our next responsibility here is election of officers. Once again, I feel like Bill Murray on Groundhog Day. I feel like this happens every
year.
time we. No, but when you meet 4 times a year, it seems constant. So, we have staff to help us with this, or what's the protocol this time?
A member needs to make a motion on who they would like chairman. If there's not another nominee, then that person will automatically be chairman, and then that chairman would take over for the vice chairman to nomination.
It might be prudent before we start this process, just to, since none of us really talk when we leave this room, do we have any personal issues that are, going to prevent us from serving here, even as members of this commission? Any time constraints? Anyone moving away or having twins, or
I may
No?
just
Already had twins?
yeah. I might have some time constraints just because being in school and traveling from Gainesville to Vero Beach. There may be some times when I can't make a meeting. But yeah, we can try to schedule around that.
we definitely would work with you. And I wanted to encourage you to maybe even attempt a phone call meeting, which I guess you can do too. So
Yeah. Okay.
because we would miss you. All right. So
And then we have new members, or is that something we're...
Yes, Vicki Gold is our new member. Mr. Whittall is no longer on this commission. He moved over to a different commission.
Okay.
oh my goodness.
Yay, finally.
Yay!
Thank you.
I could not be more pleased.
Glad to be here.
Happy to have you. All right, so moving on.
Well, I'll make a motion that you stay on as,
I'll
if you
second.
choose to do that.
I'll second that.
All right, that looks like I'm dragging the anchor for another year. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, I'm the girl that can't say no, apparently. All right.
Song about that.
Move on. I guess we need a vice. So, any ideas here?
Who
Any
was the
suggestions
vice,
for vice
chairman?
chair?
Anna.
Okay.
Anna,
Will you stay?
are you comfortable
Yeah.
in that position, even
Yes.
though you're studying your?
No, I'm comfortable.
right.
That's fine.
Okay.
I'll make that motion too, that Anna Brady stays on as vice chair.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, unanimously.
The
We
two
are
girls who can't
family.
say no.
We have Ruth Stambridge with us today. So, are you here with information? I would imagine she's already passed out these wonderful new Historical
beautiful.
Society brochures.
Great.
Ta-da!
I'm not going to make a presentation, but I did want to present each of you with our Roads into History. This is our Indian River County's new brochure, Historical Society's brochure. And we had one for years that was very popular, but everybody wanted more text and more pictures. And we were going to have a book. So we compromised, and if you'll look, this count is county-wide. And you see pictures from Main Street, Vero Beach, Main Street, Sebastian, Main Street, Fellsmere, and little old Roseland is there. On the back, our history in World War II was quite extensive, and a lot of people don't know about that. So we put the war years, and we have found through the Chamber of Commerce that they are having a lot of activity with the veterans of many wars that we've had now since World War II that use Indian River County and Vero Beach as a destination point. And so they're very interested in our backside of it. So enjoy and go out all around our county and see a lot of these places are still there. Our historical places are still there. Thank you so much.
Looks beautiful.
And Ruth is also here for the next item of business that has to do with, we'll talk about how the Osceola Park Historic Marker relates to the Historical Society's program in this brochure.
Okay.
I would assume that since Ruth is the only one in our audience today, that we can move right on to old business, which would be your marker.
Okay. Gail, do you have anything?
Item A.
No, I thought this was your.
It is. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. All right. So basically, as you all may remember, the Osceola Park Historic District was designated as a National Register District about a year ago in January. And one of the next steps in that process in getting the word out about the history of Vero Beach is a historic marker program that's run by the Indian River, or managed by the Indian River County Historical Society. As you know, historic preservation is important in many facets, in government and communities, and as far as planning, it's a major component, and also as far as economic development with tourism. And these markers are very prestigious. They are administered by the state of Florida, and they're also a way to get the word out about the history and to interpret the history to the locals and to the many visitors we have in our community. So I think you all have a packet in front of you. It has the proposed verbiage that will go on the marker. Obviously, the Osceola Park Historic District, we had to contemplate where to place the marker because it's such a large area. It's not just a single site. So we looked at, there's a historic photo in your packet of the Mills House, which was a photo from the Indian River County Historical Society collection. And that is today the Landers House. It's on the corner of 19th and 20th Avenue. If you guys want to get that out or pass it around, pass it down.
So it's the stuff that was. Okay.
And so we felt like that would be the most appropriate location is in the easement next to that house because it's also a gateway to the neighborhood and it's within the National Register District boundaries. So this is the first stage. Right now, the state has the packet that you received. They have a copy of the packet. They'll have a meeting later this month where they'll review the verbiage. They might make some changes. If they do, then it'll come back for your final approval. But we're just basically, per ordinance, making the Historic Preservation Board aware of the project. And if you have any comments or questions, I guess now's the time to discuss. And then and Ruth, I don't know if you want to talk about a little bit more about the Historical Society Marker Program, but obviously the most important part is the Indian River County Historical Society has offered to pay for the marker, and then the city will install the marker. So that was very generous of them to do this, but it also fits into their historic marker program that they have, and I'll invite you to come speak about that now.
As you can see from our brochure, we've used the marker program for a number of years, and we try to highlight places all over the county that are visitors to go to. And it makes it kind of interesting because we can go to the Tourist Development Council and request funding for these markers. They run about $2,300 a piece. You have to, as Anna said, you have to go through a process through Tallahassee, and they scrutinize it. You have to send all the materials up, plus the text and all the backup. And their marker review board, I think, will be March 17th or 18th in Tallahassee. They, in turn, will send it once the text is just as we want it and they want it, they will send it off to the foundry, and then it will have, of course, the little Florida logo, which are the little trees at the top. This year, we have, from Tourist Development, we received monies for 5 markers. We have one that we're putting in Roseland, the community of Roseland. And, of course, the historic district is a first for Indian River County and the city. Hopefully it's not our last, but it definitely is something that we need to all be so very, very proud about. And the third marker that I have on this cycle is one for Dodgertown. So we have 2 more they meet 4 times a year, so I've got 2 more later in the year. But it's the hardest part, I think. The text is hard and the backup is hard, but it's finding the money. And so now with the tourist development, I think we do have a conduit for a little bit of money to put up our markers. And we try not to clutter up the landscape, but we definitely want it out there so people can go and then read about our different places in the county. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So is this informational at this point? Do we need any kind of vote or?
Well, it's going to come back to you, isn't it? I take it if they make any changes. I mean, I'd go ahead and vote that you conceptually approve it, just so we have it on record. And if they make no changes to it, you've approved it. Well, the code requires that you approve it. I know that's.
So if somebody would just make a
So
motion.
Yeah, just make a
We're
motion.
asking for a motion to approve
the
the marker program, specifically the one for Osceola Park at this.
Right.
I make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against it? All right, flies. I think the placement is great, too. I think that's a wonderful spot to put the marker.
It's about the best place they could go, I think.
I think so. That's an attractive home. Also, have you noticed that the other side of the street is beginning to get restored
Yes.
in a really lovely way?
Very
So we applaud
Exciting
those
to see
efforts
that, yes.
and hope to see that continue. All right. Tim, do you have an update for us on the CLG?
Gail provide an update
Gail?
on the CLG.
I am pleased to say that I spoke with Michael Zimney with the state this week, and he has accepted our application. It is complete, did not require any revisions. We will be receiving a letter of agreement within 2 weeks that we'll have to sign and return, and then it goes to the National Park Service for approval.
Great.
So will it be in time for the upcoming grant cycle?
That's what I was wondering.
That's June.
Fingers crossed.
And do we have any ideas?
I think it's June, but even so, you never know. What has
I
it
know.
been, 5 years or something in
It's
the
been a
making?
while.
All right. Thank you
Thank you very
for
much.
Thank you.
attending to that. Do we have new business? Anyone? I think probably all of that. Ruth's business, your business, were new business. I have nothing there. Planning and development? Anything else? from Tim
I'd
and
like
Gail?
to just invite you. We're having a neighborhood meeting for the original town neighborhood on March 20th at the community church at 6. And it's to go over the draft comprehensive plan amendment. And basically, there are provisions in there that deal with you all, so you might want to review it just so you're familiar with it. It's still in a draft, so eventually I'm going to bring it before you for some input, formal input, but it's on our website. If you go on the city's website, it's right on the front page under, I forgot, miscellaneous. If got it already.
White paper on proposed amendments.
You like
land
that.
use element.
That's it. So, and I've already gotten calls, so we.
Very heartening.
Well,
see that.
we'll see how it goes. I've got a lot of landowners that may not be as happy. But anyway, the intent of the meeting is to get have a workshop with the board, a public workshop, to get the input of the residents, the business, all the stakeholders in the neighborhood. So really encourage you all to come if you can.
Where was that
Is
again?
so yeah, they can attend. They just
And I
They
think
can
it's,
attend, they can't discuss it.
yeah, you just can't discuss. Yes. So if you want to come to hear what's going on, yeah,
Are we allowed to speak at the?
you're allowed to speak, but you can't respond to each other. I believe. Go ahead, Sherry. Sherry's better at this than I.
Yes, you can speak. I wouldn't say as a member of this
Yeah.
commission. I would speak as a citizen and then not discuss it with this board until you come back and meet in the chambers.
Okay.
Right.
That's March what?
Yeah, it's not an item necessarily to come before you, but I would like your input, so we'll bring it. So to get some input from you formally. So
do you have an hour yet? What time is this?
6.
6 p.m.?
Right. Okay.
At the community church, right?
Right. Okay.
Is the intention to do Osceola Park next?
I
or-
will get around to Osceola Park. The problem is it takes some effort to do these and to go through the process, and I'm doing other things. So, as I
Okay.
said, our staff has been cut back again, and I'm now handling the phone sometimes. So,
Is there a way Tim, is there a way to piggyback any of the information?
well, some of it will be, but there are definitely differences between original town and Osceola Park. So, I'm trying to address to do that. I want to be able to provide a focus on Osceola Park when that time comes, rather than
Lend some information.
make it look like we're dealing with the same neighborhood, and there are differences.
Well, no, that's not
Okay.
what I meant, but whatever information, so you're not doing dual.
Oh no, we are using some of the information. I mean, we did a land use survey of the city that we have, and that data was for both those neighborhoods included. So we are doing some of that, but others are more specific to the
Right, I
neighborhood.
understand.
And I wish I could do more data analysis in the neighborhood. We just don't have the staffing to be able to do that. But we'll do the best we can, and I think this is a step forward. At least it's a starting point for people to look at that we're trying to move forward on these things.
Are there other historic neighborhoods that are being addressed in the comp plan, or is it just original town Osceola?
Well, the priority in the comp plan is laid out to the Planning and Zoning Board is that we're going to deal with the first. If you're familiar with the comp plan, the comp plan was done back in '92, so we're having to redo it's a mess. It really is a mess. We're dealing just with the land use element primarily, and we're concentrating on. Because Original Town and Osceola Park came to us, they're getting the focus. But I haven't had other community neighborhoods. Every now and then I'll get a call from McCanish, but they haven't really stepped in. These are the two neighborhoods that are probably more under direct changes and conversions than we've had in some other neighborhoods. Our main issue in a lot of other neighborhoods, you're losing old homes and to larger homes, which is an issue, but these are a little more with non-residential development, that kind of thing. So there are some differences, and we're focusing on them. But we'll eventually have some general policies that we could apply all through the city, and part of it is trying to come up with a neighborhood planning program. But that was done when I was 2 planners ago that I've lost. So I can't, you only do so much with what you have, and you have to follow the priorities that are given to you. And I try. The Planning and Zoning Board is very good because I work with them on setting the priorities. But at the same time, we also have things that are done by City Council that changes those, and it's a kind of balancing act sometimes.
Now, is planning and zoning going to be at the meeting?
Yes, it's their workshop.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
That's what I thought.
So it'll be a public meeting, and we'll have one of the happy clerks there.
Or not so happy.
Any other questions about that? And please feel free, if you have any questions when you read it, just give me a call. I mean, I certainly have time to do that for you all and help you through it.
I hope that everyone attends that and supports your efforts, and because there are efforts as well. Is there anything that maybe we should be prepared to gently address if we do say anything? Anything you anticipate?
Well, I
think you're curtailing
the one of the issues that come out of Original Town is we have a lot of historic buildings, but we also have a lot of non-conforming lots and all that. My feeling is we need more density to some degree to put more residential in there, and it is really hampered by the code because of all these are old. But at the same time, you have a lot of historic buildings, so you're going to have to if you're trying to protect that resources and they get more, there's got to be something in between to be able to handle that. And if you read what we proposed in there, we have a more of a long process where the trying to get commitment from the neighborhood. They want to do something, and then we go through a process, because we get into these issues. Is it just 2-3 activists that want to have something done, or is there a sense that the community wants to do it? We're dealing with property rights, and everybody's very sensitive to that. And we do have Bert Harris. We have some other issues, and I think and even the vision plan, if you all recall, said any kind of neighborhood district would need a supermajority. Well, the question is that necessary for everything? And I think it's a policy decision that the city council sets. That's not in stone. So the way I try to do it is set a process out that we could go through. Everybody would get an opportunity, these hearings, to hear that, and the council then would make the decision whether they want to pursue something. The last thing, with the shortest staff, I want to be doing a lot of regulations, sitting back in my office, churning stuff out that there's no support for. We get at a meeting and we all get pillared. That is just not worth it. And we need the support commitment from the property owners and the residents behind us and the business owners.
But I think preparation goes far. Your preparation is always superb, but I think if we can offer our support, and particularly Anna can come up with some compelling arguments, and
I would feel, and that's why I
Ruth
suggest
would show up, and then we could just do our level best. So at least if you're still unable to convey, really that we're up here to do truly good work that everyone will benefit from.
Well, please, you had an opportunity. Read over what I suggest in there, and you've got some other suggestions. I'm open for that, and everybody is. And certainly you could bring that up at the hearings, as long as you, as a citizen, okay?
What about things like, well, I guess maybe you could speak directly to the PNC people, but what about the people that have gone the extra mile, have done a really superb job of restoring historically their properties within that neighborhood? I mean, would that be an opportune time for them to maybe bring some photographs, or people are always struck by the before and after. They get so accustomed to seeing the same every day, but if you start kind of training their eye to see what could be instead of what is, and to want something better, and to realize that it's within grasp.
I'm hoping that those people will show up at the meeting.
Okay.
I mean, we cannot force things on people. We've got to, government's only good as you're active in it.
Absolutely.
And that's one of those things that we have. And now Linda Hillman's doing a yeoman's job trying to get people interested. She's sending out mail list, and everybody knows Linda. Nothing is, there's no obstacle she ain't going to try to overcome. So hopefully we'll have a good meeting. We may have a lot of people, but if we have interested people and all that, I mean, I hope we have a good crowd, but we're just going to have to see how it goes on this.
Tim, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I know with the older neighborhoods, if God forbid, an older home is torn down, you cannot build on a certain size lot a newer home. So what I'm wondering about...
Yeah, you would be vested to a lot, so you could build on it, yes.
You would basically build a bigger home, or a home that was
you could
the same size?
Depending on it, you would have to meet FAR and a few other things, but we wouldn't be able to deny you, the person, to be able to build a residence on there. So there would be some restrictions on that. The problem we get into is we have multifamily neighborhoods with supposedly 8 to 10 units an acre or more in some of the places, but we have huge requirements for single-family lots, which really isn't consistent with what you're wanting. We have two, and I know there are people who disagree with me, but we have two neighborhoods that are very close to the downtown. We need to have more people in neighborhoods to make it a place that will be where people can walk, go to the downtown, and you may be able to get some more community services, like a market or something. You don't have to get in your car and drive out to,
Sure.
I know that's being very optimistic, but that's, and part of, part of this is getting, educating people and getting people that want to invest in the community, and we already have activists or people that are really sincere about it, and that's one reason we're working with Osceola and Original Town, because these people have been very sincere and willing to work. You look at Anna and the work she did on getting that district. I mean, that's the kind of thing that helps, and so we'll see.
Let's replace the word activist with visionary.
Yes.
It sounds
I'm sorry. Well, I have some differences of opinion on the Planning and Zoning Board. I try to be careful with what I say, but anyway.
And are those the type of discussions that we'll be able to have at that workshop?
Yes.
too? Okay,
Yes, it
that's
will
what
be.
it's designed for.
And that's exactly. And I don't want you to think just because Tim wrote this that it is. Look, as I point out again, anybody can go back, have a martini, and write something. It doesn't mean anything. You
So
need
that's
to
your
work with
secret.
it. Well, those are Fridays. My wife won't let me drink on weekdays. Anyway, but I just want, and that's why, so I open it up. I'll try not to be too defensive when people start attacking some of these thoughts. But, you don't know everything. That's why you want public input, and you want the support and the commitment to go forward. And I think the process will help. It'll help convince city council too when you get a lot of this. You're just not some group that, there's been a lot of effort here, and it's all important. Politics comes into play on all this. You know that.
I had another question, if you don't mind. What I was actually getting at is with smaller homes, with the FAR and such, sometimes you can't go back to a smaller home. Or a lot of people don't like the idea of a smaller home, especially on a smaller lot, is what I'm talking about. So I wanted to, some people are okay with a small house. Not everyone needs or wants a larger home. So that was where I was going.
Well, I think you're bringing up some ideas that if we go to... And I think if you read my paper, I've got...
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, well, I have. Take a look at it. I get into discussions over these issues, and some of that would be what we call contextual zoning, where you can vary these lots and everything to fit in with the neighborhood. You have to have more flexibility in these old historic neighborhoods to get in compatible. So we need to look at that. But again, it's a process to get there, to get the okay to spend the time and the research and do the work that needs to be done. And as I said, unless we start getting some more money, I'd love to be able to hire somebody to do that for us. But right now you're kind of stuck with us, which is the staff, and
I'm guessing
we're doing
the
what we can.
concept is a full overlay, or not full overlay?
Yeah, it would be and there are a couple overlays that are one to the dealing with conditional uses, and I've already gotten some comments on that. You can imagine, and the other could be this kind of what I was just talking about, making some changes, because I think the underlying zoning on that does prohibit, I think, good investment to create a more residential neighborhood. And I think you're going to have that. We've got some deteriorating places. People need to have incentives to reinvest without changing the full character of the neighborhood and still protecting what the historic resources in the neighborhood.
That's exactly where I was going, so I appreciate that.
I mean, sounds good. It's complicated to do, but if we have got the support of people like you, we'll get there, hopefully. All right.
Anna, is there a way to gently introduce the prospect of things like design review, and if you're trying to preserve historic elements of a neighborhood, or is that too early, or is that going to frighten people and make them think that?
Well, I don't know what that staff has in mind. If you're going to have an educational component in the beginning, that they're running the show.
Yeah, we do talk about overlays where you could do that. Okay. But again, it's a matter of political support. There's ideological differences. People don't look, and you all know, to get that ordinance through for the historic preservation, we had to really dumb it down a lot just to get it through, or we would never gotten there. Mm-hmm. So people get nervous about having those kind of controls and all that, and it does take resources to put something together with design criteria that meets all the legal requirements and is fair to the property owner. I mean, I've got an architectural review board or commission. Their board. It's been so long we haven't had a meeting, and basically we've gutted all their powers except for the overlay district in Ocean Drive and Cardinal Drive is until they come up with design criteria. We were getting into this problem where they would be in these hearings and there was no consistent design criteria, and I had 9 architects telling people different things what to do. Well, we haven't done anything because I don't have the time, and I haven't gotten a volunteer from the architectural review to work with me to come up with the criteria for that. So it takes some effort, And that takes a lot of knowing what your existing development pattern, what's out there. As you said, usually they have pattern books is what you get into with these kind of things. So,
well, and I think we're fortunate because the survey was updated. You
Right.
have a precedent in these neighborhoods, which is the early 1900s, 20s, and you have some 30s and 40s. And there are also examples of pattern books that are designed for these type of neighborhoods that could be shown as an example of something that could be done easily so that citizens can really grasp what it means. I think we'll have an opportunity to have a conversation about design review that night, about what a historic district may mean, or maybe different types of overlays you're discussing. I think that's where our input as citizens will come in to play, and also as board members. Really as citizens that night will come into play.
With Original Town, with that.
Yes, because I think there's a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions about what a historic district is, or even design review, or even some of these pattern books, and what an individual property owner is susceptible to, and that's a chance for us to educate and to just talk about the facts of what it means and what choices there are in addressing the issues in those neighborhoods.
Yeah, and I think, and those are really good points you just made. And the way I've got it set up is that you would go through and define what the need were, because a historic district or just a conservation district, let's call it, for stabilization, does not have to cover every. It could be just certain things that are very important to the neighborhood that you cover. But that needs to be looked at and agreed to about people, and we have a process set up to do that. So I want you to take a look at that. But I also want to point out, remember the historic district was just set up. You got that through because there's no prohibitions on anything. I mean, the people have some benefits for that, but they weren't. You don't have somebody telling you what you can do and not do in your property.
The national,
right? That's the National Register.
Yeah, and so I'm sorry. Go ahead,
no,
Ann. I apologize.
And the whole point, and let me back up.
Yeah.
We're talking about end products here. The whole point of this too is to find out what the people living in this neighborhood want. Yeah. Basically, and then translating that into codes, I guess, would be the right.
Yeah, and I think one of the issues also in these neighborhoods is, particularly in Original Town, we have a lot of people that don't live there that own property. So that's where the rub comes, and the question is, are they going to come to the meeting? We hope to have them at the meeting.
Believe it or not, I know in these older neighborhoods, and a lot of people don't think about this, they usually associate it with the beach side, but the folks that live there really do like the quality of life there for the most part. They like their homes, they like the surroundings. So I think already you've got it in place that they like what's going on. I think there's a lot of misconception, like you said, about historic preservation. So I think if we do more to educate in that regard, that there's not a whole lot of change we're asking for. It's more of an idea of protecting a quality of life they already have.
Well, hey, that's very good, and that's a great role for you all to play in this process, because I mean that's what the council's got you set up to do this with the CLG now and all that. I think it's a great role. So very good.
I'd like to say something too about the supermajority, because I had a problem with that for a long time. Because
I don't think we voted for it, actually.
The city recognized these two neighborhoods as neighborhoods without having a supermajority. And I think we need to go forward keeping that in mind, because we have gotten where we are with the commitment of just a few people in each neighborhood. So we've done a lot of work, and I just think that is something that keeps stopping us, this supermajority, this elusive supermajority. And I just think it's going to be very hard to get something done if that is insisted upon.
Well, and I don't, it was in the vision plan, and there are a lot of people that believe that. So what I'm saying is, that's one of the obstacles you have here.
It's a concepted idea. Yeah. It's not even. It's more of a philosophy on.
It's a philosophy, right?
It's not really been voted on. The vision plan as a whole was voted on, but then the idea was to break it down into components. And technically, Original Town and Osceola Town have done that. We've already started doing that. So we're already on that.
You're already on the thing, and then this will push you along further because it's an education process too, because you'll see there's a process set up for looking at these things that doesn't require necessarily, it's going to be the city council's going to have to make that decision. And hopefully there'll be enough along here that the city council will have information they can make a good decision on. And that's the intent of this whole thing. So please take a look at it. And I'm trying, because I don't want us to just stop because everything has to need a supermajority. No, but I just point that out to people that is something that's come up, that does come up time and time
I
again.
think we need to show the precedents. We've already set the precedents for where we're headed.
Right.
And I think if we remind the council of that, I think they do acknowledge that.
Right.
We're already on a path, and I don't think they're going to stand in the way to stop that process. Because they basically said in the vision plan too, because we've started that process, the individual neighborhoods, took it upon themselves. So it's not like we're telling the rest of the city what to do.
No.
So
That's it. Well, again, that card
So
of
it should
those
be
absentee
easy.
landlords out there.
Yes, it should be so easy.
Yeah. But anyway, no, it's great. But we have a lot of people like you all that are very interested in this and committed to doing stuff and all that. So let's just move it along. All right.
Yes. I think when people are confrontational, they truly don't understand, what we're trying to promote and how beneficial it is. And I think when we go to that meeting and other ones, that's the thing to bear in mind.
Good.
Is that those moments are always due to comprehension. And I always say failure on our part to convey what it is that we're trying to promote in a way that they can understand. So, that means we have to work harder and do it better. And now that I've shared that with you, I can't make that meeting because I'm not going to be here. So have fun. No, I believe in you guys. I guess if you have other friends in that neighborhood who've restored their homes and feel strongly, encourage them, call them, and make sure they show up and have a voice.
Definitely.
And, all right. Moving on.
Yeah, that's all I had.
All right.
Unless you had some
That's-
questions.
That's plenty. And
Thanks, Tim.
thanks, Tim. This was nice to see. Nice to encounter. Back to our agenda. All right, number 8, Chairman's Matters. I won't linger too long here. Of course, I've been working on our designation plaques, and all I can say is it's still taking longer than I would like to fabricate. We've had some problems with deciding on an enduring material. Once we go through the process of making something, I want to make sure it looks good for a long, long time. And there were some concerns with using local help. I've had 2 gentlemen working on this with me. Griffin Arundel from Ironsides, who's been wonderful. He's their design guy. And then at one point we visited the Shade Tree Studios and spoke with the sculptor there, Pat Cochran, who we learned a lot about casting, the whole process, and he's done plaques for the St. Lucie Village. I don't know if you're familiar with that. You probably
With
are.
the neighborhood, but not their plaques.
The
No.
neighborhood is astounding, and Ruth, you know all these places like the back of your hand, but we visited that area on South Old Dixie, St. Lucie County, right, this side of
It's a great neighborhood.
unbelievable.
Really
So
interesting
charming
neighborhood.
and lost and just as quaint as it could be. And anyway, he did the plaques for them, but they're experiencing some real problems with the material not weathering. And and the design was lovely, but again, we don't want something that's going to show signs of corrosion, and we want something that's going to be bright and beautiful. And so ongoing conversations with Erie Landmark. Are you using Erie or Siwa, Ruth, for Siwa? Siwa is better at the aluminum painted embossed type that you encounter when you're driving through Florida. And Erie does more of the bronze work. So we will probably go with Erie. And I did get finally an original casting fabrication estimate, and it's not cheap.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the design, just for those that may not know?
I
Real
don't
quick.
have any of those design
But just that
examples
it's a
with me.
coin. And
But it is and I don't know, Ruth, if you're familiar with this, and I'm sure that I've burdened you with this whole process as a neighbor. But trying to decide what would be appropriate for this region was an ongoing process, and we started off wanting a vintage design, and at some point I looked at, oh, look at here. These are pretty simplistic, but at some point I started looking at old coins to find, we thought we might use a palm tree, and I just fell head over heels in love with the text and the font and all of that. Each coin was a work of art. Anyway, short story is all of a sudden it hit us like a ton of bricks that this is the Treasure Coast, and it would be very appropriate to do something that just looked like a coin. So, we did research on Spanish colonial currency, and we're trying to come up with a design that would be appropriate. And there's a lot to it, I must admit, getting into this thing. When you are creating something that's permanent as something could be, that we make and put on a home or other building that's important, you start to really critically look at all the elements of it, because you certainly don't want to come back in 30 years if you have the ability to and say, boy, that was dumb. I really want to spend time now thinking about this and making sure that what we do will have the same enduring value as the home or the building that it's attached to. So the other thing that, Ruth, I hope this will appeal to you too. Part of the plaque story that we're creating here is when you look at these Spanish coins, and for instance, this one with the cross in the middle was created that way so that it could actually be divided and used as change, if you will. And most of them have very irregular edges. They're not round. They are broken. And so that is what people did in the day to cheat you. They would reduce the value of the coin by whittling off pieces around the edges of coins and then, making a little extra on the side. And I thought really that served as a valuable lesson too, particularly after having gone through the St. Edward's business with that building. When Anna and I walked through it, I'll always remember that day where from the outside the facade of St. Edward's looked so wonderful and like something that we should embrace forever. But when you went inside, you realized it had just been so pulled to pieces and done incorrectly over the years because they had no guidance. We had no one in place to suggest otherwise. That it's kind of like the lesson of the coin. If you take the Spanish coin that's worth whatever when it's minted and you start whittling away at it, then you end up with something that's far less valuable. So I'm thinking that truly might be an appropriate icon.
I know with the state of Florida, the older markers had the seal of the state of Florida, which is very ornate. There's one at the Women's Club, but the ones now that they make have a very, very simple logo, and it's simply what you're saying, that over the years it takes too much maintenance, it looks too busy, and all this stuff.
Right.
They come up with something very simple, and from, I don't know, probably the 70s, 80s on, we've used that little bitty, those little trees.
Well, I wanted it to look very contemporary, but with a vintage icon when we started this process. Now we're all hung up on, I made a series of phone calls because I realized there might be some resistance to having the word historic even on the plaque, because a lot of people really associate the word historic with being old, outdated, good then, but not now. It just, there are a lot of different bad, connotations, certainly. Something you don't want to put on a designation plaque. So Any comments on that?
Is that new information?
Yeah, well, I suppose it would be considered new information.
I mean,
but
I just think if you're designating a building as historic, those aren't the people that are going to question its historic significance. I feel like that's okay to do, because that's the point of what we're trying to say, that it is historic,
Yeah,
and we're teaching people
That's the
about.
whole point.
We're teaching people about the
but here-
significant.
I think
But
I'd rather
here's-
play up to the positive than to the
But-
negative.
Well, go ahead.
In
maybe.
other words,
All right, one more thing,
Don't buy
and then
into
I'll let
the
you guys.
What
have at
what
it.
type of
The
feedback
other
are you
thing
getting?
is, I think what our real task here is not to wrap our arms around old things and try to convince people that old things have value or that are worth retaining, but to show people that old, like Tim, for instance, now, but that these old things are contemporary. I'm trying to get them to see these old things in a contemporary light. And I think when you label them historic, that then people think that again belongs to a different time and place, a different era, and they fail to make that jump to the fact that this is something that still not only has merit today, but even has typically more merit today than some of the new construction that we're seeing.
Well, and
that
I
is
think-
done,
Sorry.
not as sensitively.
I think where you're going with that is you're talking about values and what do people value and why do they value it?
And you have to look at our
And
community.
they may not value it just because of age. It may be in architecture. It may be because of a family associated with a property. We value historic buildings for many reasons. I think for a local historic preservation program that is run by a local government and has tradition and precedent set, I think it's okay to designate buildings as historic. But there's another component that has to do with engagement and engaging citizens, which I think that's where you're going. You want to point out the different values of why that building is considered significant or historic.
How much
No.
is understood, though, and how? I mean, you have to decide again, and we're all familiar with the seals and crusts that are littered with designs. It's like, here's a book, or is it going to be something that in itself, just the item itself, is going to be self-explanatory? You're going to see that it's either going to be the shape, or it's going to be the design,
I think
or is it
eventually
going to
that
be, or is it going to be a historical page? I mean, you have to go, I think, one way or the other. And the ones that I've seen in the communities that I have admired the most lean more towards being really spare and contemporary and not full of stuff. With the idea being that you just know, you by seeing this, you understand what the significance is.
I follow what you're saying now. You're focusing on whether the word historic needs to be on the plaque or not.
Yes, that's
okay.
it. We know it's historic.
I'm
If
going
it
to go
has a
back
plaque-
to my. I'll reiterate what I've mentioned
historic
before.
belongs on the roadside markers, but
Right,
does-
but it doesn't. It doesn't even necessarily have to say anything. I think if we could just designate it as the year the structure was
Yes,
built and
yes.
leave it alone, and it's a shape. I've seen that a number of places,
Yes.
and it takes a little while to establish. But guess what? Once it's established, everybody knows
What's
what that
what?
means.
Yeah,
We
and that,
pretty
I
much
remember
should-
that conversation, and I was fine with that. It becomes this icon, and
It's
that's what it
just a shape
symbolizes.
and
something
with a
historic.
number on it.
Yeah,
and it's,
and I'm
it doesn't even say
perfectly
circa.
fine with
It's
that.
We
just
pretty much
here's the
agreed
number.
to this. Not the last meeting, but it might have been the last meeting. But we pretty much, I thought this was settled.
Yeah.
The idea of we understood it was historic, and the people asking about it, they understand that this is something they want, and the simplistic view I thought we were going with anyway.
Yeah,
I thought we had pretty much settled on.
because we're closer now to fabrication, and because I really came away from that meeting, I thought, hearing that we wanted historic Vero Beach.
I don't remember
So if
that.
I'm thrilled if we have a consensus.
I'm
on
okay
this.
with that, but obviously, it's going to connect to this is a historic building, and this is
Right.
the history we're trying to preserve. That's how it needs to be branded, and
Well, established or built.
obviously,
people
it's
understand
based on we're designating historic buildings based on criteria set up by the National Register of Historic Places that you're not just going to get to be able to buy this plaque and put it on your house just because you want it and it looks pretty. There's a reason why that plaque is going on a building, and it has to do with the historical significance of the building. And as long as it's, obviously going to be branded that way.
Does it have to be designated historic? Is it buildings or houses
That's a good question, too, because some communities will allow you to purchase this and to place it on your house without you actually going through the local designation process.
Then that may be a nonprofit that's developing that kind of program. I can't see that a local city government would support that effort because it's not protected. The building could be torn down without even a review process of it coming to us. I mean, then it has no meaning. It loses its meaning if that's been able to done.
With this designation, they will actually be a process that
Yes,
come
yes.
through the city.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Those.
I know what you mean because they do that and they just put it everywhere. And some of the buildings are not anywhere near. They've been changed so much that you don't even know where the historic part is. And most of the time, you don't have to have historic on anything. On our plaques that we put up for the railroad station, we have just the railroad station, the old railroad station, and people recognize that as our logo. Just like the 3 little palm trees on the state of Florida, there's no historic anywhere about it. But like you said, Stacy, that's exactly what they recognize. And after a while, it may take a while, they will recognize that as your brand, your logo. But I think what scared me was the fact that just don't let everybody do that. Ann and I know what kind of process we have to go through at the state level and the national level, and it shouldn't be any different in the city of Vero Beach.
No, it won't be, I promise you.
Well,
Thanks
is
for
that part of the education process? Because I heard somebody last weekend say that there's one house that's locally designated historic, right?
That's right.
Yes,
So far.
yes,
And it's on the market.
yes.
And somebody said, well, he can't sell it because nobody can put air conditioning in it.
Oh,
There's
that's not true.
And I
A
said, that is
misconception.
totally not true.
No.
It just illustrated
and
how
those
much
are the
more
kind of
education
misconceptions that we
needs
really
to be
need
done.
to,
Yes.
Right.
in a
Well,
friendly
but I
way.
think people
Yes.
get a handle on something. They get a thought in their head, and it's like anything else. Doesn't matter what the topic is. They'll hang on to it, and that becomes their truth as they know it,
Yes.
their truth and information. But I think that the neighborhood that I live in, I think that was the biggest problem there. There were a couple people that were maybe just didn't have enough to do with their time or something, and just kind of created some thoughts. And then they also had a lot of time to go spread it around to the neighbors, and they were working with really bad information. But I think people get, worried. You try to do anything different, and they get scared. And instead of asking questions, they just
React.
they're going to oppose it no matter what. So
I have a suggestion,
Yeah,
if
there's
you don't
no-
mind, Deborah.
Yes.
Why don't we, some of the concerns we've heard in the community, and we've all heard different ones, why don't we each write them down and then have a suggestion and bring them back to the table when we meet again as a way to start the education process, because then we know what we're facing. Because right now we're just kind of supposing a lot of things, and it may only be a few people, may not even be the general consensus out there. So I think we should be aware of how each of us are thinking and what we're hearing and how to start the educational process in a positive forward motion.
We have already started the educational process by posting Anna's wonderful collection of information on
I understand
our
that, but
website. And I think that might be where we begin, rather than running around and conducting this, that, and the other. I think
I'm not
we need to
asking
make
you to.
we need to make sure that in itself is compelling. That
I'm
there's
simply asking
something
you to
inviting.
address, each of us have heard concerns, so each of us might have our own concerns. So I'm simply asking that you allow each of us to address those. It has nothing to do with the website and what Anna started. Anna's done a great job, and I understand that, but I'm not sure how many people still know that. So that's part of the process. To me, what I've suggested is part of the process. If we're actually going to do an educational process, then there's many facets to it. It's not. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, and
What are you recommending specifically?
I thought the idea was we each have heard concerns. So I would suggest that we think about those concerns and how would we address those concerns and bring it back to the table. If it's already on the page that Ann has done, then that's been addressed. If it's not, then it's something that perhaps we should look at. And I don't know, because I don't know what's what's been said to each individual.
Yeah, I support your ideas. And actually, I was going to comment, but since we're talking about it, I'll mention now. You're right. We've already begun the process. I think this marker, this local marker that will be on the building, this is a process. We all have our own individual ways of talking to people and educating them about preservation and what it means, or just talking about our historic resources. Something that I became very enlightened when I went off to college again and graduate school and talking to my various professors, and you see these young students as well, and they're bringing in new ideas, and it really made me realize this is what our challenge is community engagement. And the website, though obviously it has its faults, and I admit, but that's only one way of engaging, and it's not interactive either. And I know we're limited. We're limited because of staff. We're limited because we can't do Facebook, evidently. I mean, maybe there's some way, maybe because staff has to manage it. I don't know. But we're going to have to come up with some ways of engaging the public. And I do support us thinking of ideas and bringing them back to this table. And I think that's kind of what you're saying.
Yes.
Because a lot of this is anecdotal as to why we think somebody doesn't want to designate their building or why they don't think it's historic. And we can bring some of those facts and maybe bring some different ways that we can try to engage the public better and work with staff to come up with some solutions
And
to
put
those
that
issues.
on your next agenda to remind
That's
you.
what I would recommend anyway.
That's what you choose.
I think that's what we're looking for, is more engagement, more communication, more conversation.
And staff may have some ideas that we're not aware of, can propose to us.
Anytime, thank you.
We're all ears. I think that's, it's ongoing with Main Street, same topic.
Yes.
It's ongoing with our historic neighborhoods, where you have enlightened citizens, promoting on a daily basis every dog walk. So it is happening. And I agree, if there are other ways that we can do this, let's implement them. So bring your ideas to the next meeting. And as far as the website goes, there's tons of information there. I would just like to see something on the homepage that is eye-catching and that takes you directly without having to examine, commissions, committees, and then, get eventually.
I agree.
end up-
I think it's limiting that we can only have this webpage on the city's website, in those parameters. It would be nice if we could have something,
And
separate.
are we not able to do that?
I don't know.
On
That's
the
how I
homepage?
understood.
Tammy, the clerk's office are the ones that handle that.
We have
They
to
would-
gang up on Tammy?
Oh, I couldn't do that.
Well, it's
I love her pieces, but
it's that vehicle for how do we get people
well,
even
how did
there.
Tim get the white
So-
paper on the window? That's on there.
Well,
I mean,
but it's
why-
just one. We took off a bunch of things. It's just an update. I don't know. Did you request to have it? Sherry, do you
I
know
would
any
need
more?
to check on it.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer for you. I'd
Yeah.
have to check.
But there is a lot of space there. I mean,
No,
just
no.
a little box is your home historic.
Sherry will
blah,
check
blah,
with
blah.
Tammy and see if we can get on there. I think it's a valid point. We've got other things that don't. Do we still have the vision plan? I mean,
Yeah.
There's
I
just
think
only
it's on
so
there.
much room. And there's
yeah. So I think we
stuff,
could
so
take.
everybody
To me,
wants
the vision
something on
plan
it.
does not need to. It's been what, 9 years?
Yeah,
I think we could put something else more relevant.
But I noticed too, the county has a Facebook page for their conservation lands program.
We right now we're restricted. We haven't gone to Facebook, so
and even just show.
oh,
sorry, go
we
ahead.
have.
Let me just talk with Holt and Tammy,
Okay.
Yeah,
and
okay.
we'll let you know. Okay.
Thank you.
we're
Yeah.
giving her an anxiety attack. All right, that's fine. Oh boy. All right. What else? I I think that's it for me. I suppose before we move on to members' matters here, if there's anything we haven't touched on, I wanted to finish by welcoming Vicki again. We're thrilled to have you, and I want to also thank Mr. Woodall for his time here and for joining us, for his service. All women, if we don't frighten the world, who will? We still have Tim in the room, though.
I
So
know.
let's
I was
hope.
gonna say.
Tim has not fled out the door yet.
He hasn't put on a kilt yet.
Yes, but we'll have to get him one for one of our occasions. All right, moving on to members' matters, which we've
Covered.
already thrown in here and there. But anything else on anyone's minds that we need
I would
to...
like to say something. I'm on the board of the center now, and they're having a March. I'm going to probably get this wrong since I'm new. I'll ask Vicki because Main Street is part of this. It's March 13th.
Yes, I'm on that committee. I'm
Okay,
not,
that's right,
Main
you are.
Street's not really
Okay, so
a part of it.
that's right because I saw your name on the email list. But March 13th, I think at 5.
It's from 5 to 8, and it's Heritage Celebration Day at the Heritage Center. And it's about if these walls could talk. So it's about historic buildings throughout the whole entire county. And we have big banners that have been made that will be hanging. You will leave with a book of information. I think it's going to be the best one that we've ever had so far. This is the 3rd year, and I think it's going to be exciting. It's $10 to get in, to let people know. So I think it's going to be wonderful, though.
I've seen one of the posters. They're magnificent, and they're going to be up for auction. I believe they're starting at $150. And it's pretty interesting what they've done, and I've seen the beginning of the books. We went last year, and I thought that was interesting, and all the history that was done, and it's really quite an event they put on. And I'm quite impressed, to be honest with you.
And there's a wall of shame and a hall of fame or something. But it's going to show, what I like about it is it shows buildings, really neat buildings that we had that have been torn down. And it's so sad to see that, but I think people need to see that. And also the good the buildings that have been refurbished, and we've retained them for our county, for everybody to be able to see them. So I think that's going to be a neat part of it too.
I invite the whole board, and I tell you what, it's a great educational tool. So I think this is a great step with what we've been working on for the last many years. So, thank you.
Everything counts.
Yes.
And Vicki, too, has done an outstanding job of directing the Main Street organization this year. It's just been rollicking fun. And you've really done a good job of, I think, bringing the public out. One night we had dinner, and it was, oh, my God, it was like Woodstock or something. I've never seen so many people. You couldn't get into a restaurant.
It's great. And the
streets were
gallery
loaded with
stroll is tonight,
cars.
too. So that's brought out, I think last month was the most people I've ever seen downtown. So come out tonight, too.
And this
It'll be
brings a
fun.
lot of notice to our historic downtown. So things are actually on an upswing.
And your flowers look great.
Thank you. They do. They do. Thank you to Robin Polensky, who's on P&Z.
I think that's it. Anyone else?
No, I just want to thank Ruth Stambridge for coming out today, and the Historical Society again for helping with this marker. So
Good job.
Thank you.
And thank you, Anna.
Would have been hard to afford it otherwise.
Yes.
I don't know how we would have done it. So thank you.
Look at all our pictures on the Hall of Fame. A lot of those were ones that the Historical Society have been doing for the last 30 years. So
Yes.
it'll be good to see them all up together.
You know, the one thing I try to let people know when they really are not interested in preservation is that when you have a house, if people have a house that is truly not suitable for them, you know, it's too small, they have a big, fabulous lot, and the trend is to overbuild. I think we're seeing the end of that now. We're going the other way, thankfully. But all they need to know is that even with a house that is designated, as long as they are respectful to that existing structure, they can build onto it. They don't have to demolish it. And a lot of people just, that one piece of information is enough to really get them thinking and reconsidering their attitude.
So, but if you truly are uncomfortable in a small house that doesn't suit you, you can resent it and not see it for its charms, for its value. But keep it and build onto it, and
Deborah,
let it live.
I'm going to wade in here. I think the trend in this community has, and I think there were craftsmen here a long time ago, who were really visionary about how they would approach an older home, that they would add onto it. They had those skills, they had that thought, and it wasn't a disposable thing. I think our society, and certainly in this community, at least this has been my finding, because I like to tear them apart and put them back together, and I have yet to find a builder who knows more about this than I do in this community. They
I'm
just
sure.
don't want to do it. It's too much of a. There are too many what ifs. There are too many possibilities. There are too many things that you can find in those walls. And I mean, there were Band-Aids wrapped around wires in my house and behind walls. So this last one that I've done. So you just don't know. But I think that it would be great to have some builders here who really embraced that, instead of, it would be so much easier just to pull it down and start over again. That's really kind of the mindset, because they can control
Well, that's
that.
the fastest way to.
They can
get the
control.
job
They can
done.
control it. So
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think that it's
Maybe if we could get a list of builders, if we can find them, or designers that we could refer people to. And I have talked to people who wish we had a design studio where people could go. They would just volunteer. I mean, I know architects who have said that they would be interested in doing that.
Wonderful.
But it's getting it to actually.
Can we link
Yeah.
that site to the main street? We talked about this a little bit. I think that would be a great place for resources, to direct people to
Yeah.
resources.
Absolutely.
Maybe I should get my contractor's license.
You should.
Yeah, you should. You should.
I thought about it too.
You go back to school too.
Hard hat.
I have one and a tool belt.
Okay.
I think we're good.
All right.
2 cents.
10:38, and I think it's time to adjourn. All
Make
in
a motion
favor?
to adjourn?
Hit the streets. We're out of here.
Okay.